Hey folks, welcome back to the Leeds Gamer. I thought I'd do a video just for a bit of fun really, just for a bit of a laugh. What I'm going to do is I am going to grade how the season is going for each of the 20 Premier League teams this season so far. Up to now, it looks as if they've all played 22 games of the 38 game season, so we're well into the season now. We're past halfway, and with 22 games played, I think we've got a pretty good indication as to where teams might finish. There's still a lot of football to be played, but this is just for a bit of fun. So I'll go through them alphabetically. It looks as if the tier list maker site has put them in alphabetical order just about. Oh, not. Oh, no, it's nowhere near actually. Oh well. I'll try and do them as alphabetically as I can. We'll start with and just before I get into this, I'm basing this on expectation of each individual club, as well as current league position, recent form, goals scored, goals conceded, games won, games lost. Trying to basically include as much as I can with this. So we'll start with Arsenal because they are at least one of the teams that's first alphabetically. They're currently top of the league, and they're doing pretty well. I mean, it has to be said. So after 22 games played, they have won 15 of them, drawn 5. They've only lost 2 games all season. They've scored 40 goals, so they're nearly scoring 2 goals a game. They've only conceded 14, with a plus 26 goal difference and 50 points on the board. The form of the last 5 games is 3 wins and 2 draws. And this is where it now starts to get a little bit difficult, because every season you expect Arsenal to be, as a minimum, the top quarter, so top 5, but realistically top 2 or 3. Overall, you expect Arsenal to be there or thereabouts. They are currently quite a bit ahead. They've got a 7-point lead over Manchester City in second. They haven't scored as many goals as Manchester City, but they've conceded less than Manchester City, and they do have 2 goals more on with the what's the bloody phrase? Well, the overall goals anyway. I can't believe I can't think of the bloody phrase. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. Goal difference, if you like. So yeah, goal difference. They've got plus 2 more than Man City, but 7 points more. It's quite a gap at the top of the table, isn't it? So this is where I'm a little bit torn. The season as a whole, if you forget who the team is, the season as a whole, the team at the top is doing a great season. But is it great for Arsenal's expectations or Arsenal's standards? I kind of wish I hadn't started with Arsenal now, because this is a tricky one to judge. Because is it a great season, or is it just good for the expectations of Arsenal Football Club? That's the tough one. It's not a bad lead to have at this stage of the season, is it? And when you compare it to 1 or 2 other teams that I'm going to come to very shortly, in terms of the expectation of said club, there's quite a difference. This is difficult. In context, I'm going to say good for now. I might change my mind. Arsenal fans will obviously say it's a great season, but you kind of expect Arsenal to be there or thereabouts. But they are top by some distance. Now, is that because Arsenal's been very good, or is it because the rest of the division's not been that good? That again is another context way of looking at it. Let's move on, and we may come back to that a little bit later. Who should we have a look at now then? So Aston Villa, they're another team that's pretty much alphabet. Begin with A, so for Christ's sake, it's there or thereabouts. Now, so this is what I was meaning, and this is why I'm going to do the Aston Villa one now. I'm going to put Aston Villa in the great category. So Aston Villa, you expect them to be as a minimum top half. You know, they're a very established Premier League team. They've only been out at Premier League, you know, a small number of years since the 92-93 season, or whichever the first ever season was. They have been out of it. They have been relegated before, but obviously come back up again. But they're currently third, and you know they're currently third place. 22 games played, 13 wins, 4 draws and 5 losses, which ironically is the same record as the team in second, of which we'll come to later. But they are third instead of second because they've scored less with 33 and they've conceded more with 25. So their goal difference is considerably weaker than the team in second. But with an impressive 43 points, you know, Villa are going to qualify for Europe in some capacity this season unless they have an absolute meltdown. So for Aston Villa's standards and expectations, you've got to say it's a great season because they're mixing it up with the Rich Six, they're mixing it up with the big boys. Did I think they were amazing when they played against Leeds? Not really. It was a pretty tight game between the two of them. I actually think that their best player on the day was Daniel Marlon, and they've sold him, which was a real surprise to me there. I thought he looked like their brightest player up front, or in that forward line, so we'll have to see if that affects Aston Villa's season or not. Moving on. Well, technically speak, I mean, they've got AFC in their name, but I mean, even the normal part of their name is still pretty high up in the alphabet. Let's go Bournemouth. They have AFC in their name officially. So AFC Bournemouth. They're on a bit of a slump at the minute. Like, their form's not amazing. It's only 1 win in the last 5. They're currently 15th. They've got 6 wins, 9 draws, 7 losses. They've scored 35 but conceded 41, so they've got a -6 goal difference. 27 points on the board. And it's loss, draw, loss, win, draw in the form book. Now, AFC Bournemouth got very lucky against Leeds, and they ended up getting a late equaliser for the match to finish 2-2. Again, do I think Bournemouth were amazing on that day? No, absolutely not. And their position's not that fantastic. They're only 1 place above Leeds right now, and you know, and they've got one of the highest rated managers, certainly that Spain's produced in recent times, in Areola. But you know, Bournemouth sold a lot of players, and obviously the players they've brought in since aren't quite as good, and they're suffering for it a little bit. So whilst I don't think it's a bad or a rubbish season, I don't think it can be any higher than average for Bournemouth. So I'm going to put Bournemouth in average. Let's go Brentford. Brentford. They are currently 7th. I'm going to say they're having a very good season because, and I'll tell you for why, and it's for one reason, well, one main reason in particular. Once they lost Thomas Frank, who obviously was doing very well at Brentford, they decided to promote their set-piece coach, Keith Andrews, to their head coach, and they are currently 7th with 10 wins, 3 draws, 9 losses, 35 scored, 30 conceded, plus 5 goal difference, 33 points on the board, with a win-draw, win-win-loss scenario in the last 5. Now, I have to be honest, when they appointed Andrews, I thought, nah, they're screwed. You know, they lost a couple of key players as well in the summer. I think the key to Brentford's season is that they either win or they lose. They don't draw many, with only 3 draws on the board. They do have a positive goal difference as well. So, quite frankly, this is way above where I thought they were going to be. I thought they might struggle. This season, but quite evidently they're not doing. So, there we go. Next, Burnley. This is a tricky one because when you look at the quality of Burnley's squad, it is poor. There's no argument on that. They probably on paper have the worst squad in the division. So far, they're currently in 19th place with 3 wins, 5 draws, 14 losses. They've scored 23 goals, so only just 1 goal more than a goal a game. They've conceded a whopping 42, which is nearly 2 a game. So they've got a minus 19 goal difference and have got 14 points on the board, but they are winless in the last 5, with it saying draw, loss, loss, draw, draw. This is a problem for Burnley. Their squad quality just simply isn't good enough. There would be question marks as to whether Scott Parker is a good enough manager, but ultimately, you know, he hasn't got a lot of tools to work with. It's not good enough to be average because it is a poor points total, it is a poor league position, but you expect, you know, at the start of the season, I think most people expected Burnley to be either in the relegation zone or certainly within the bottom quarter of the division, and that's exactly where they are right now. They are in a bit of a mess. So I think we have to say it's a bad season currently for Burnley. You can't say it's rubbish because it's not on Wolverhampton level. And they are only a couple of wins away from, you know, a couple of wins, couple of draws away from possibly having a slight chance of getting out of that relegation zone. But then they're expecting the likes of West Ham and Nottingham Forest to, you know, to flounder miserably while they go on a bit of a run. Not saying it can't happen, but ultimately it's, you know, for the expectation. Remember, this video is all about the expectation of each club, and I don't think Burnley are that far off where they probably where they expected to be. I don't mean any disrespect by that. They just have, on paper at least, I know football's played on grass, but on paper they have one of, if not the weakest squad in this division. You can't expect miracles from them. And that's, you know, they lack a quality striker for starters, and that's just the start of the problem. So yeah, there we go. Who shall we go to next? Well, we could go Chelsea next because again it's virtually alphabetical. Chelsea are currently 6th. They have 9 wins, 7 draws, 6 losses, 36 goals scored, 24 conceded, plus 12 goal difference and 34 points on the board. While the plus 12 is quite a nice figure, 34 points, not terrible. They've got loss, draw, loss, win. So the form's not amazing, is it really? You know, they've got a couple of losses in the last 5 there for Chelsea. And when you look at it, they have had a managerial change. So it's not really an amazing season, for the standards or expectations that Chelsea Football Club would currently have. Obviously, you know, it's one of the clubs to have a YouTuber who's, you know, got a fair position in his life right now, in the sense of Rory Jennings working for TalkSport and whatnot. He's a massive Chelsea fan, um, and I know for a fact that Rory Jennings, when Leeds beat Chelsea 3-1, Rory Jennings was absolutely peeved. He was he went off on one. Like, I'm not a fan of Rory Jennings, and don't like him, but because he does talk a lot of that. But again, Chelsea fan, what do you expect? So, with this in mind, I think really, when you think of where Chelsea have been in certain seasons, certainly like in the Abramovich era, Chelsea were always expected to be top 2 or 3, weren't they? But the Todd Bowley era, I think it's been a completely different scenario. I'm going to say that they're having, for their standards, I'm going to say they're having an average season. Because while it's good that they've got more wins and draws than they have losses, and while the goal difference is quite good, 6th, they're not in the top quarter of the division, and it's close there. I mean, when you look at it, they're only 1 point off 5th and 2 points off 4th. Then there's a little bit of a gap to the top 3. So some might argue and say that maybe they're having a good season, but for their expectations, is it that good? I think it's average for a club that expects to be in that top quarter of the division. And as I said, they're only 1 place out of the top quarter. But again, expectation levels. So, moving on. Crystal Palace. We've forgotten Brighton, actually. I'll go to Brighton after. I'll just do Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace. They're about where you'd expect them to be. They're currently 13th. They've got 7 wins, 7 draws, 8 losses, 23 scored, 25 conceded, so they don't score or concede a right lot. Kind of averages a goal a game on both sides, thereabouts. -2 goal difference, 28 points on the board. Loss, draw, loss, draw, loss. The form is terrible. Glasner has been very outspoken in recent times, but they are about where you would expect Crystal Palace to be. But they have just sold their best centre-back, Gueye, for about 20 mil. So things aren't going to get any better for Crystal Palace. So, to be honest, I know the form's bad, but ultimately, in recent seasons, Palace have finished mid-table, so it's usually somewhere between 7th and 13th, and they are currently 13th. So I'm going to say that Crystal Palace are having an average season. But if they don't stop this rot of form, then it could end up being bad or rubbish. It really could. So let's go to Brighton then. They're 12th at the moment at Brighton. Similar record to Palace, thereabouts. They've got 7 wins, 9 draws, 6 losses, 32 goals scored. So they do score quite a bit more than Palace, but 29 conceded, so they do concede more as well. But they do have a plus goal difference of +3 as opposed to Palace's -2. And they have 30 points on the board. So, with this in mind, their form of the last 5 is loss, draw, win, draw, draw. So, only 1 loss in the last 5. They're quite established. The owner, Tony Bloom's a well-known poker player, so he's quite rich. again, I think that they're about where you'd expect them to be, Brighton. It could be argued that maybe some people would think that they should be a little higher. But should they really? I mean, I'm not so sure. You know, I could have arguments that maybe Bournemouth should be knocked down to having a bad season. You know, because they've been a few places. You know, they've been at least mid-table, haven't they, in recent times? But I might have to change my thought process a little bit here. I'm going to put Brighton for now in average because I mean they've got youngest coach in league with Ursula, hasn't he? He's still only in his 30s. He's younger than me, for Christ's sake. Yeah, with me being 41, less mention about that, the better. So, moving on then. Who we're going to talk about next? Let's go Everton. Where are they? 10th. You know what? I'm going to say they're having a good season. Again, you expect Everton to be somewhere realistically between like 7. Well, I mean, it could be as high as about 6 or as low as about 16th. You know, they do fluctuate, but they never get relegated. They've been an ever present in the Premier League since its formation in the early 90s. But they currently find themselves in 10th. They've got 9 wins, 5 draws, 8 losses, 24 scored, 25 conceded. So again, a bit like Palace. They don't score a lot, they don't concede a lot. Minus 1 goal difference, 32 points on the board, and their form reads as draw, win, loss, draw, win. So again, quite mixed. Leeds actually play Everton at the brand spanking new stadium, the Hill Dickinson spaceship. Most of these modern stadiums are like bloody spaceships these days, aren't they? So yeah, I think you'd have to say that the fact that they're currently in the top half, you've got to say they're having a good season. Because they are a very unpredictable team every season, aren't they, Everton? But again, they've had as many seasons in bottom half as they've had in top half. So I think I'd say that Everton's having a good season. For the standards and the expectations, that the club have. Let's go with Fulham then. Where are they? They're 11th. Similar again, I think. I don't think Fulham. If anything, I'd say that Fulham's expectations are even lower than Everton's. Which, I don't know, might be seen as a bit harsh, I don't know. But Fulham have had far less number of seasons. I mean, Fulham are established in the Premier League, but they've had less seasons than Everton in the top flight. So with Fulham, Fulham's had, well, again, a bit like, did we mention? Brentford, a little bit like Brentford, they either win or they lose. They don't draw as much. So they've had 9 wins, 4 draws, 9 losses. Scored 30 but conceded 31. So minus 1 goal difference. 31 points on the board with the win, draw, win, loss. And I am pleased to say that loss came against Leeds. Leeds exacted revenge on Fulham. With a late winning goal, just like what Fulham got against Leeds in the reverse fixture. So again, a bit like Everton, I've got to say that Fulham are having it's a good season for them. They're on the cusp of the top half. I'd say it's a little better than average, for them. I would say at the moment. Yeah, I don't think I'm outlandish with that one. I think we might be on to my club next. If we're sticking by this alphabetical kind of job. Let's go Leeds. Leeds. So, my team. They are currently 16th place. 6 wins, 7 draws, 9 losses. Scored 30 but conceded 37, a -7 goal difference. 25 points on the board, with a last 5 record of draw, loss, win. Next opponent is Everton at Everton's ground. In terms of the context of where that is for Leeds in the table, they're only 2 places above the relegation zone. However, 25 points compared to 17 points is a reasonably healthy gap of 8 points. And, Leeds have scored a decent amount. In 22 games, they've actually scored a bit more than some of the other clubs that are higher than them right now. A couple of the clubs that are currently in the top half, in fact. However, it's that conceding column, which obviously started really heavily. The second game, they got walloped by Arsenal 5-0. And again, if you take that match in isolation and even forget that game even happened, then all of a sudden you're looking at just a -2 difference and 30 against 32 as opposed to 37. It's the one game this season that has walloped Leeds' goals against. Unfortunately, we haven't really been thrashed in any other game. We've been soundly beaten a couple of times, but not thrashed in the manner that Arsenal thrashed us. But that was very early on in the season. The club was still learning quite a lot about what it was to be like in the Premier League, especially with so many players that have never played in the league before. Now, obviously, the first 12 or so games, not so great, but the last 10 for Leeds is where Leeds' form has really started, kind of propping up. Now, if we're saying that Burnley, when we talk about the promoted clubs from the Championship, if we're saying that Burnley's season is currently bad based on expectation, and bearing in mind that there are, that after Burnley you've got the other 2 clubs that came up, and again that both of those clubs are in quite different positions right now. In isolation, Leeds are having, certainly at the moment, a good season. But in terms of expectation of where Leeds expect to be by the end of the season, based on everything that the club's up against, PSR being tighter, and other aspects like that, as unbiased as I want to be, in my opinion, individually, we're having a good season. But in context, as an overall perspective, we have to say that Leeds are having an average season, because they are where we would expect to be. But that's not downgrading Leeds' season individually. Individually, when you look at Leeds just on its own, they're doing very well. Certainly, and again, certainly within the last 10 games or so, since that second half against Man City. But I can't. It's nowhere near as bad a season as Burnley, and it ain't as good as Sunderland. So I've got, if there was an option between average and good, that's where Leeds would be right now. They'd be about there. They'd be in that halfway bracket between average and good. But in the context of things, I can't put Leeds in good, because we are still quite far down, and we are still only a couple of places above that relegation zone. But in terms of expectation, where we'd expect to be for this season, that feels about right. So, moving on from my club, because I could talk about my club all the time. Alright, who's next? Let's go Liverpool. Where are they? Liverpool are currently 4th. With 10 wins, 6 draws, 6 losses, 33 goals scored, 29 conceded. with a +4 goal difference, 36 points on the board, 1 win and 4 draws. I just wonder if 2 of those are against Leeds, actually. Hold on. Yeah, the first of the draws is against Leeds. That was the 0-0. Oh, I wonder if the 3-3 might have been before that win they got then. Oh, it is actually. But yeah, so before that win, it must have been the 3-3 that they had with Leeds. Then they beat they beat bottom of the table Wolves 2-1. They drew with Leeds then 0-0. They drew with Fulham, who were 11th, 2-2. They drew with Arsenal. Okay, so no disrespect with that draw, because obviously Arsenal's currently top. But then they drew 1-1 with Burnley. Now, again, you'd expect Liverpool to be in that top quarter. But let's just put some things into context. They spent three-figure sums in terms of the number of millions, but effectively it spent massively over 100 million on Wirtz. They spent massively over 100 million on Isak. Isak hasn't been the best striker at the club this season. That's been 80 odd million pounds spent on Ekitike. And Wirtz has really struggled. You could argue Wirtz is still only about 22-year-old. He's relatively young, but they've spent all that money on him. And overall, Liverpool has spent probably more this season than they've ever spent in any season ever. In the context of things, are they where they would expect to be right now? I mean, they're in the top quarter, but I think Liverpool, with the amount of money they've spent, would expect to be, top 2, top 3 as a minimum. And there is a gap. There is a gap between 4th and 3rd right now, because you've got Liverpool on 36 and you've got Aston Villa on 43. Now, I don't like if Liverpool were currently outside of the top quarter, so the top 5, I would be saying they're having a bad season. Because in context with the amount of money they've spent, they couldn't even beat Leeds. They got 2 draws against Leeds, a 3-3 and a 0-0. And they've clearly had some very dodgy results and some near scrapes against other teams that are quite low down in the table right now. On the face of it, 10 wins and 6 draws and 6 losses is not a terrible record. But again, scoring 33, not bad at all. But conceding 29 for a team that's 4th, that sounds quite a bit. I mean, it's more than the 3 teams above them. And it's only a +4 difference overall. So I have to look at this in context and say, are Liverpool having an average season, or are they actually having a bad season? This is difficult. My initial thought was average. But when you think of the amount of money that they've spent this season, and I mean to make things worse for Liverpool, Isak's out with a season-ending injury now, isn't he? So all that money's spent and they haven't got anywhere near the best out of him at all. Because again, in context, what they currently have is not bad. But this is aren't they the defending champions this season? They've got no chance of winning league this season. Absolutely no chance. It would have to be an insane crumble by the top 3 for them to have any chance at all. I'm so torn between average and I'm so torn between average and bad. I mean, at the moment, I've only put Burnley in bad, but and that almost feels a bit harsh in the context of things right now. You know what? I think I'm going to give Burnley I'm going to give Burnley a neighbour in that category. I'm going to say it's a bad season for Liverpool right now. There are arguments to say that they should be there next to where Leeds are. I just can't justify it with the amount of money they've spent. I just can't. So I'm going to say it's a bad season. If they hadn't spent, £250 million on just two players, and that's not the only two players they spent. As I say, they've spent 80 million on Ekitike, who has, ended up being a very good striker for him. But he was brought in as the second choice striker behind Isak. So certainly in terms of the amount of money spent on him, and they brought in other players as well. So as I say, on paper it's not a bad season for Liverpool, but again, for the expectation, they spent all that money, they would expect to be top two right now. They're nowhere near it. So I don't think I'm out of line by putting them in a bad season right now. If I'm putting Burnley in there when their expectation is to be in and around that, but it is so bad that they are currently, so many points off. They're 8 points away from safety, and they've got a worse goal difference than Nottingham Forest. So it's almost like being 9 points off. So it's pretty bad, even for Burnley standards. But for Liverpool standards, who would expect to be top two after the money they've spent, I don't think that's completely out of line. So moving on, that was a tough one. As I say, there's arguments for both average and bad. We'll go on to the two Manchester clubs then. Man City, currently second. They've scored the most with 45. They've conceded the second least with 21. They're currently second in the table with 13 wins, 4 draws, 5 losses, which is a little bit surprising for Manchester City. But they're only 2 goals difference off Arsenal, who are top of the league, but they are 7 points behind. Their last 5 form is win, draw, loss. They've had a lot of draws, and a recent loss. Who beat them? Let's have a look. Oh, it were bloody Manchester Derby. Ugh. Right, less said about that the better. But their next opponent's Wolves, who are at bottom, so it's like, what are you going to do? So, Man City, you see, with Liverpool being between average and bad, I think Man City is between good and average. You can't, I don't really think you can say that it's average when it's the second, the second best, it's the joint second best number of wins. It's the, it's the joint second best number of losses. It's, they've actually scored more than Arsenal, but they've conceded more than Arsenal. So they've got the first best goals scored in the division. But it's Manchester City who spend so much every year, but even Liverpool have probably spent more than Man City this season so far. If I'm putting Arsenal in good, oh God, I mean, does that mean then that I have to put Man City in average? It's all about the context, isn't it? I'll put them in good for now, but I'm when I've placed everyone initially, I'm going to just have a quick scan and a quick review, just to see if I've got everyone where I think they probably should be. Manure, considering that they were 15th last season, and for a lot of the time looked like they might even get relegated if it weren't for the bottom 3 being so bad, the fact that they are currently 5th is way higher than you'd expect it to be. But they've had like Chelsea, they've had a change of manager. So the season obviously ain't been that great if the change in manager, with them being that high up. I mean, putting them in 5th is about as high as they've been for a long time, isn't it? they're in fifth with 9 wins, 8 draws, 5 losses, 38 scored, 32 conceded, plus 6, 35 points scored. Win, draw, win, and the next opponent's Arsenal. I mean, just to get them out of the way, you've got to say they're actually, and I hate to say this, but they're having a good season. Ugh. I wish they weren't. Moving on. Who's next? We could go Newcastle or Nottingham Forest, couldn't we? Let's go Newcastle then. What are they doing? Newcastle are 8th. And they have currently 9 wins, 6 draws, 7 losses, 32 goals scored with 27 conceded. So plus 5 goal difference with 33 points on the board. Same as Brentford and same as Sunderland, who we're going to get to very soon as well. Near the bottom of that top half in 8th place. Their current form over the last 5 is loss, win, draw. They're doing quite well. Doing quite well in the last 4, aren't they? They've got Aston Villa next. That could be a decent game. Difficult one with Newcastle. The season didn't start all that great for them. They were quite low down. Newcastle had a very spawny win against Leeds. Did it finish 3-2 or 4-3? No, it was 4-3, wasn't it? Absolutely spawny. They got 2 goals after the 90th minute, which I think the last one was like 112 minutes into the game. I mean, come on. Again, I've criticised Leeds for not showing better game management after the 90th minute. That's 8 games this season that they've conceded a goal in, after the 90th minute. I've criticised Leeds on that, and that's my club. I do criticise my club constructively when needed. But yeah, overall, do I put Newcastle as average? I mean, it's kind of where you'd expect Newcastle, isn't it? I mean, they've got some good players in that squad. I mean, Bruno Guimaraes and Joel Linton and Tonali. It's a good midfield, isn't it? I'm going to say they're having an average season because you'd think they'd be a little higher, I think. And I think the expectations of Newcastle, they would kind of see themselves maybe, pushing towards that top quarter, rather than being in 8th. It's not a bad season by any stretch of the imagination. It's very close to being a good season for Newcastle, but I think the start of the season is what kind of let them down a bit. But it's so close to putting them in good, but it ain't quite good yet. That's very close. Again, another one that I might review. So, Forest. Now then. Could we have the first rubbish season here? Nottingham Forest are currently 17th place with 6 wins, 4 draws, 12 losses. That's a lot of losses. With 21 goals scored, so they're not scoring quite 1 goal a game. 34 goals conceded, so they're letting in quite a few, with a minus 13 goal difference and 22 points on the board. But their form over the last 2 has been okay. But overall, over the last 5, they've had loss, win, draw. Their next opponents being Brentford. It's at least bad when you consider the money that Marinakis has spent, the number of players that Marinakis has brought into Nottingham Forest over these last few seasons. The fact that Forest have been in Europe not that long ago. Our Forest expectation, Forest expectations will certainly be higher than 17th at least. Does it go down as rubbish though? It's certainly bad. It's certainly bad. But it's not quite as bad as West Ham. It's not quite as bad as Wolves. And from a context point of view, it's nowhere near as, you know. Well, again, it's not as bad as Burnley. But again, Burnley have less resources, far less resources than Nottingham Forest. So again, it's that expectation. Marinakis has, he has replaced managers as well this season. I'm going to say bad, but I could have arguments to put him down a peg. We'll come to it in a moment. Sunderland. I hate to say it, but got to put them up there. Great season so far. They're the team whose expectation was obviously going to be the least when you compare it to, everybody else. Sunderland are currently 9th with 8 wins, 9 draws, 5 losses. You see, only 5 losses is not bad at all. I've got to give them that. They're actually on a neutral goal difference. They've scored 23, conceded 23. So it's very average though, isn't it? After 22 games, you're scoring just over 1 goal a game. You're conceding just over 1 goal a game. It's boring. But Sunderland won't mind if it gives them a top half finish at the end of the season. Currently on 33 points. Draw, loss, win. Hold on. Yeah, draw, loss, win. Yeah. The next opponent is West Ham. So, yeah, I think realistically, Lebris, he's never managed in Premier League before. Half of his squad are very young, bar Zaka. And they're having a great season. What can you say? They're a newly promoted club and they're in the top half. So, yeah, there we go. As much as I hate to say it, there's no argument on it. So, moving on. We've only got 3 left, haven't we? Tottenham Hotspur. Oh. Now then. Do we have the first... Right, is it bad enough to be rubbish? Now this is a context situation here. Because with Crystal Palace... what am I on about? Crystal Palace, they're the team above Tottenham Hotspur, sorry. So Tottenham Hotspur have currently... Tottenham Hotspur currently got 7 wins, 6 draws, 9 losses, 31 goals scored, 29 conceded. So again, very close in that regard. Just a +2 difference. 27 points on the board, which is the same as Bournemouth. With a win, draw, loss record in the last 5. Their next opponent, is that Burnley? I think it's Burnley. Yeah, it's Burnley. So... Tottenham haven't really adapted ever since losing Kane and Son, in my opinion. They obviously lost Kane a couple of seasons ago and lost Son a little bit more recently, but ultimately those 2 players in recent seasons have carried, or seemingly carried, Tottenham Hotspur. Now when Tottenham played against Leeds, I didn't think Tottenham were all that great. They had a couple of players who looked reasonably decent. Kudus, Simons, Tell, all 3 of those looked reasonably decent on the day. And it was probably those difference makers who allowed Tottenham to beat us on that day. But again, I think that was one of the matches... Oh no, we didn't concede late in that one. No, we didn't concede that one, but it was a very even game for the majority. I think Spurs won it 2-1 or something. It was a pretty close match, um, but Thomas Frank's having a very tough time of it since leaving Brentford to become Tottenham manager. They got knocked out of the cup by Aston Villa, but again, look at where Villa are in the table. You know, Tottenham, they are still technically one of the rich six. I say it in quotes. It's very loose these days, isn't it? But they did finish 17th last season, and and if it weren't for the bottom three being so bad, if the bottom three hadn't been so bad last season, the bottom three would have been Man United, Tottenham, and Wolves. All three of them, boom, down. They were the next three teams above the relegation zone, and all three of them were rubbish. It's just the fact that the three teams in the relegation zone were even more rubbish. So, from a context point of view, is this a bad season for Tottenham? Or is it a rubbish season? If we're putting Liverpool in bad, and Liverpool are currently fourth, they're 10 places ahead of Tottenham. I think Tottenham have to go in rubbish. But as I say, I don't think Tottenham have adapted since losing their two talismans up front. You could argue that they haven't recovered since having Lloris in goal either. Three of the key players that Tottenham have had in recent times, the goalkeeper and the two strikers, and they haven't got any of them. And it's got to be argued that Tottenham have not replaced them. Vicario, the goalkeeper, he's a flapper. I don't rate him. And those ones I just mentioned, like Kudus isn't bad, and Simons isn't bad, Tell's not bad, but they're not great. You know what I mean? So I don't think I'm too harsh putting them there. Now this just leaves the two teams beginning with W, West Ham United and Wolverhampton Wanderers. And if I'm putting Burnley in bad, but again you look at the context, you look at how many seasons Burnley have had in the Premier League from this season. Obviously Burnley came up from the Championship. Wolves, as I say, were sandwiched between Tottenham and Man U last season, in and around, I think Wolves were 16th. I don't know where West Ham finished last season, but the fact remains that West Ham are currently 18th, with 4 wins, 5 draws, 13 losses, which is a lot of losses, 24 goals scored, but 44 conceded. It's a dreadful defence. It's worse in the division, actually. Minus 20, with 17 points on the board. They are 5 points off safety and have a worse goal difference than Nottingham Forest right now. So it's basically 6 points. When you look at it like that. Their current form is loss, draw, loss, win. It's not great. And as I say, with West Ham, again, they've had seasons outside of the Premier League before, but they have been established in recent times. You've got to say, they're having a rubbish season. I don't think that's too harsh to say, really. And then when you look at Wolves, if it weren't for the recent upturn of form, where they've had 3, so their form in the last 5 is loss, draw, win, draw. And those 3 draws and the 1 win, before that, it left them with just 2 draws and no wins at all. So that was after like game 18. They were so bad. I mean, they've got a chance of actually beating the all-time worst record of Derby County's 11 points, because they're currently on 8 points. But they've only scored 15 goals. They've conceded 41, which actually, Burnley and West Ham have conceded more. But the score, it's the scoring that's the problem. They need a striker, and badly. They've only scored 15 goals this season. It's a -26, which is obviously the worst in the division. But it's not mainly because of the goals conceded. It's because of the lack of goals scored. They're on a measly, paltry 8 points for the season right now. 1 win, 5 draws, 16 losses. The most losses in the division, the least number of wins in the division, and the least number of goals scored in the division. I mean, it's bad after bad after bad after bad. Now, as I say, last season they were only just above the relegation zone, sandwiched between the other two, of Tottenham and Manure. And the gap between 17th and 18th was pretty sizable. But there we have it, folks. Bit of a long one, this, but quite fun to do for the majority. Right, quick glance. Am I happy with where I've put everybody? Let's just have a look here. So, Aston Villa currently third. Yeah, I'd say they're having a great season for their standard, or their expectation. Bearing in mind, yet again, folks, this video is based on the expectation of what the club's own expectations are. Brentford, after losing the manager and losing some of the best players, got to say, having them 7th, they're having a great season. Sunderland, newly promoted team, top half, they're having a great season. On to the goods. Arsenal, you expect Arsenal to be in that top 2 or 3, don't you? They must have averaged at least 3rd place for the last God knows how many seasons. They're so close to it feels a bit harsh to say that they're not having a great season. I'll keep them there. Everton, top half. I think good season. I think that's fair for them. Fulham 11th again. I think that's good for them. I don't think they've got the expectations to be like top 5 or anything. Nothing daft like that. Man City, they'd expect to be either 1st or 2nd. They're currently 2nd. So you could say that it's an average season for Manchester City. If it's only a good season for Arsenal, is it a good season for Man City? Arsenal aren't just topped by a couple of points. They've got a 7-point gap between 2nd and 3rd, because obviously Man City and Villa are on the same number of points. I almost feel like I've got to upgrade Arsenal. But is it because Arsenal's been very good, or is it because the rest of the division's not been that great? You could look at it both ways, couldn't you? I think if you compare the two Manchester clubs, you got City in 2nd, you've got United in 5th. It's like, but Manure have been so bad recently. This is a massive improvement for Manure, despite the fact that they had a change of manager. I think just for the sheer turmoil at Manure, I can't say that Manure are having a great season. Again, it's all context. Arsenal need a category, a bit like what I said about Leeds earlier. They need a category that's between good and great. I'll put Arsenal up to great, but just because there's a good, they've got a good gap. They've only lost 2 games. You've got to say that's really good, in the scheme of things. They're proving to be very hard to beat, and that's why they are top of the table. Bournemouth average. I'm wondering if Bournemouth maybe could be put down a peg, but nobody expects Bournemouth to do anything. I don't know. Chelsea 6, yeah. Palace. Palace. They were doing all right. They dropped a little bit, but they're still only 13th. It's about right. Brighton 12th. It's about right. Leeds. They are where they'd expect to be. Newcastle. I think this is about right. Again, is it slightly harsh on Liverpool? But they spent so much money this season. and then those three really are doing pretty bad. I'll leave it there, folks. Let me know, are these where you grade everyone's season so far based on the expectation of where these clubs expect themselves to be? Do please put it in the comments down below. Do please like the video, do please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and do please hype the video if you can do so. Thank you for all the support, really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, I'll see you next time. Bye for now.